On Saturday, May 4th, the Midwest Broken Mirror Project will be kicking off its exhibition tour at the Saginaw Club here in Riverfront, Saginaw. And I'm joined by Mastermind? No, that's not Mastermind.
Yeah, I think that would be best, honestly.
Everyone call me the Mastermind. Laura Swanson from Creative Embers. Nicole Luzak from United Way Bay County sent me a text after you spoke at the Junior League meeting and said, you have to talk to this person. And so I'm so excited to talk to you today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm honestly surprised because I was I was just crying. I was just crying at the microphone saying things I didn't plan to say.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I'm glad it had some kind of impression.
Like crying because you're feeling especially vulnerable? Or
yeah, I think this is honestly... I don't know how to explain it, but the other projects I've worked on around human trafficking, sexual assault, domestic violence, even though I have personal connections to the material, like I do everything that I've been invested in and done, it's different to say like, oh, I've been sexually assaulted or a victim of domestic violence and having worked through that and not having shame attached to it. It's because that's something that somebody did to me versus... When we talk about body image, it's not something like I have OCD, BDD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, body dysmorphic disorder. And to me, it's hard to talk about that without feeling like judgment or like something's mentally wrong with me or like that it's just me talking about stuff out of vanity. I don't know how to explain it. So it's not something that I ever prepared to like talk about, but the reality is that in doing this project, people keep asking, well, what got you into this? And I'm like, well, I really don't know how else to explain it other than talk about my personal ties to it.
That's so interesting to me because the way that you explain it, because like part of the heaviness of like your body image is I don't feel good about this part of me. But I also feel another level of shame even talking about it because like I shouldn't feel bad about it. Like I should be happy with it, but I'm not. But then if I do say something about it, are people going to say like, well, like, why are you being so vain? And so then you don't. And then like you're caught in this cycle of like, I'm trying to deal with this thing, but I can't really talk about it because then I have shame. Even more shame attached to it.
Right. And I feel like also part of that is it does not help that I am also a white woman like in her early 30s. And the whole point of our project is to expand beyond the normal types of photo projects and video projects that typically display a Eurocentric perspective and westernized beauty standards. But I'm completely influenced by that and a product of it. But I think where I wanted to come from this was people, it's just like eating disorders. It comes out of mental health issues, like serious mental health issues that stem far beyond like, oh, I just saw this in the social media. Like you can be influenced and have severe body image issues just because you have things like OCD. And I don't even understand how BDD comes together. I've read so much literature on like, is that genetic? Is that influenced, nature versus nurture? And
What I love, and we're going to talk about this point, and then we'll break down what Broken Mirror Project is, kind of the 101. Yeah, because people are going for a ride right now, and I love every second of it. You're going to want to go to this exhibition at the Saginaw Club. P.S. What I love, going to the website, you see some of the examples of the gorgeous photos, the photography. In one of the largest photos, one of the first photos I came across was of a man standing in front of a mirror. He's covered in tattoos, like average looking man, and I mean that in the best, sir. If you are listening, I mean that in the absolute best way. And he's looking at himself. He's got his shirt off in the mirror, and he's like pinching his love handle. And around the mirror, are all these clippings of like bodybuilding magazines and things like that. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's me.
Really?
And there was a rare moment for me because like typically the conversation, at least from my experience, has been centered around women and body image, and being a photographer myself, and seeing that, like, absolutely, I've kind of interacted with that perspective, but to see like a man like visually struggling with that, like you don't see that very often. Like we're often not part of that conversation. And like when you're talking about this idea of, well, I feel this way, but if I vocalize it, it feels vain. I mean, that's I think especially true with men. Like, well, like men shouldn't care, or like I should be a man. Like this shouldn't be something I worry about. And I saw that photo and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is such an incredible project.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and that's exactly what we wanted to display. His name is Sean. He's from the Lansing area. And I'm going to be honest, it was incredibly difficult to try to find men that wanted to talk about this and would be willing to do some kind of photo project about it. And I noticed that he has body dysmorphic disorder, and it paralleled kind of my story. And all I could think about was, oh, we talk so much about the influences on women. And while, yes, I'll always admit, women by far have, more things going against them. But sometimes you forget that men are also influenced, also seeing the social media, also are having similar feelings, and yet feel ostracized, or because of masculinity, ideals in our society, feel like they can't talk about it. So for his particular photo, which is kind of the photo that we've used to just represent the whole project, is put him in that environment where he is vulnerable, exposing that, and to show like what his version of what he's thinking of is like, that you would typically think a woman should be standing there instead of him.
Yeah. Sean, I want to thank you. If you end up listening to this or watching this, Sean, I want to thank you for being willing to be part of this project. Because like, I'll be perfectly transparent. I have a kind of a genetic thing with my twin brother where I'm covered in like lipomas, so these little like they're kind of like fatty tumors.
Yes.
And that's something that I'm very self-conscious about. I grew up in kind of the bodybuilding world, and then kind of the genetics came into play, and that was something that I was self-conscious of. And so Sean, I want to give you a shout out, man, because I think men are going to see that photo and connect with you in a really, really incredible way. So, Sean, my dude, thank you so much. We spent a lot of time talking like conceptually about this project, but let's talk the 101 of what the Broken Mirror Project is. What is it? What's coming to Saginaw Club? Kind of give me the bones of it.
Yeah, so the Broken Mirror Project is, I'm going to be honest, I put down that it was 21 subjects, and then I found out with Glenn that I miscounted, and it's 22 individuals. Okay. But on all materials, it's 21. Yes. But anyways, it's basically a visual series with documentary-style interviews and photos that represent varying people's stories throughout all 12 Midwestern states. And the whole concept is to broaden the idea of what we typically think about when we think in terms of body image. We wanted to open up more dialogue, because once you start thinking about what affects us personally in our body image, you end up running into things like systemic racism, sexism, the trauma that we encounter. All of these things that are woven into our fabric of our society are also woven into how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive others. And we didn't want the project to be, here we're putting something out, you have to be body positive, you have to think this way, you have to think everybody's attractive. We say, we just want you to see bodies differently. We want you to see the complexity, and we want to do it in a way that is not deterring, it's more opening to people. Everyone can relate to it, and that's our greatest chance in our mind of possibly being able to change someone else's perspective, or have someone who maybe doesn't understand the transgender experience, or is struggling to understand all the stuff that's going on, politically speaking even. How can you relate to them at all? And we felt like through understanding what it's like to feel like you're not enough in the body that you're in.
I said earlier I was so smitten by this project, and I I just became even more enamored by it because I love the body positivity movement, if you want to call it that. But there's also a part of me that feels like, well, what if I'm not quite there yet?
Yeah.
Like I hop on Instagram and like, you should love yourself. But like, what if I'm like, I feel like I might need a couple more steps between here and there. Well, you should just accept yourself. Well, like I can't just wake up tomorrow and say, oh yeah, okay, here. Like all of my issues are gone. I'm feeling confident. And I love this. Like there's kind of an intermediary step. You're seeing other people who also have the same struggles or have a different experience than you or a more severe experience than you. And I think this is such a beautiful, maybe intermediary step between people who are like, I know that I should feel better about myself and I should accept myself, but I don't know if I'm quite mentally ready there yet. This could be a stepping stone.
And I think the body positivity movement kind of forgets about people with differently abled bodies, like, different disabilities or something, chronic illness and pain. If we say, oh, you just need to focus on what your body can do for you. Well, sometimes people are going through experiences where their body isn't able to do as much as it used to be. There's a difference in functioning. And how do you combat that? And so we really just wanted to be vigilant about how we did this project in a way to just be like, we just want you to see the people. We want you to see the people. We want you to see how all these different systems affect all of us and how we feel about ourselves. And, our body image is an integral part of our well-being. Mm-hmm. And so that affects how we show up in the world on a daily basis. That affects how our systems are working. And I feel like if we can learn to accept each other at our core and understand that I can't judge you just by X, Y, and Z. I just feel like that's where we need to be going in the future.
It's such an incredible point when you said about the conversation typically centers on like kind of just one lane of self-image. Like typically it revolves around weight. Mm-hmm. And like if I'm a person in chronic pain, and my body is the thing that I wake up thinking about because I'm in constant pain, and I go to bed thinking about it, and it keeps me from enjoying life. And then I hear somebody say, well, you should love your body because of all the amazing things it does. Like, that doesn't convince me. In fact, it makes me feel worse because I know that, like, well, what if I feel like my body is not amazing? Because every single moment of my life, I'm racked with incredible pain.
Right.
And now I have guilt on top of pain, on top of all these things. And I love your direction of saying, well, let's look at the person.
Right.
And all of these different kinds of people. How did you like come across this idea for this project?
I think it's been one of those things that's just been stirring in my mind for a long time. After I had to start going to therapy and being clinically diagnosed with body dysmorphic disorder and recently OCD, coming to understand myself, just wanting to be able to, represent that in the work that I do. And also my dear friend, Jenna, we would not call each other
Sometimes
that.
We go out for tea, my dearest friend.
My friend Jenna Hovey, who is a amazing photographer.
She is amazing.
Yeah, she does
Jenna,
a lot.
You're so good.
Yeah, she does a lot of really cool stuff. We're kind of like weird twins in some way. It's like we met and found out that she's like from Kansas and I'm from Kansas. And then we realized my mom was her dad's boss at Michigan State University, and just all these parallels. That's how I met Glenn, was through Jenna.
Awesome.
Just weirdness. And she also, has her own story. And she had already kind of had the idea and started on her own body image project, and it kind of got put on hold. And so we just felt like it was perfect to join forces. And originally it was going to be focused more on body dysmorphia. And we just took a step back and realized that we don't want to be contributing to the same content that's already out there. And we need to be really mindful, because part of the work of Creative Embers, the nonprofit that I'm the director of, is we want to be really focused in on how we do artwork. How does it, how can we combine it with education in some fashion to try to actually create some sort of change that goes beyond awareness?
I have so much respect for that, because you could low-hanging fruit is not the right phrase. But like
right.
I want to say like maybe the most obvious answer would be to jump into kind of like what the conversation currently is centering around, because that's what's getting the attention and things like that. But like to have the principled stance of saying, what else can we add to this conversation that's important? How can we make people who are not typically seen in this conversation feel seen and feel understood, like they are also part of it, and maybe along the way give them a little bit of an opportunity for a voice as well, saying like, you can verbalize this and you can talk about this. Yeah.
Yes, I feel like one of the biggest things is certain people with different identities feeling like they don't deserve the right or they can't take up space, and so we want to provide that space.
Wow. Okay, we're probably going to circle back to the body image conversation, but you brought up Creative Embers.
Yes.
Let's explain a little bit of what that is, because this is super interesting to me. So, what is Creative Embers?
Okay, so Creative Embers was originally Break the Chain Productions, so it stemmed out of my LLC. During the pandemic, we transitioned it into a nonprofit organization because we realized everything that we're doing is already running as if a nonprofit organization. So we wanted to create a nonprofit for independent artists and give them the opportunity to learn how to develop stories that really create some sort of community impact and aid survivors in healing, and learn how to do this with that focused thought in mind. So our goal in the future is to have in-house productions to help aid other independent artist productions, to be able to provide grants through it, and then also to be able to provide that financial, fiscal sponsorship, where, we might not have the money to give to you, but if you have a project that really aligns with our mission and we think it's going to be amazing and helpful to people, you can use our 501c3 status to gain funding, because it's very hard as an artist when you're not running your own nonprofit to be able to seek avenues for funding, because businesses and different grants really want that status.
Yeah. How did you come up with kind of this framework? Because typically, if I look at myself as a filmmaker, or I've done a production, I'm thinking, I'm going to make a production house for my own documentary. But here you're creating Creative Embers to facilitate other creatives' projects.
Yes.
How did that idea come about?
Well, I just felt like, I didn't want Creative Embers to be self-serving. And I also noticed that within the work that we do, because you're an independent artist, if you want to do something like a feature-length film, it's very hard to be able to get everybody on the team like full time. You have to use a lot of resources and a lot of different artists in the broader connected network that you can get helps that actually be able to follow through and bring the film to life. And so by starting to see all of these other creatives, I just thought, well, I feel like I know so many people that have so many great ideas for creative projects, but they end up just falling off because of these different roadblocks. And I want to create a space where we try to figure out how to get past those roadblocks, because I truly do believe that, I understand there are jobs that are, necessities, and you can say the creative world isn't, but I truly think the only thing that transforms your heart is when you're viewing it through story in some way. So I think that story and creative spaces is an integral part of societal reform.
We're going to talk about that.
I'm sorry, I'm going off all over the place.
I love it. No,
Okay.
You can go off wherever direction you want, because I am here for it. This idea of being like a facilitator for socially impactful creative project, I think is so brilliant, because we were talking before recording is if I'm a photographer, I see art, and that's what the world I want to live in, and that I want to do the project and I want to do the craft, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I have the business sense to be able to pull off that project. Like, I've got 50 different projects in my brain. I have no idea. Like, how do I get money for that?
Exactly.
How do I get the funding for that? Like, how does that work? Like, who do I pitch to? Like, I don't even know where to start. And so the idea of having a nonprofit saying, we're where to start. Like, pitch us your project. We'll talk about it. We can connect you with funding. I think is absolutely brilliant, and I think it's going to bring so much great work into the world that we otherwise wouldn't be exposed to.
Great. That's my hope. I'm like, that's my hope.
When did it start?
2020 is when we officially switched into a 501c3, but I would say 2021 is really when we started actually becoming a little bit more up and running.
Yeah, being a thing. Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned your LLC, Break the Chain LLC.
It was Break the Chain Productions.
Okay.
It's basically like, hey, I'm doing this film work and I'm doing these projects, but I'm realizing I have no legal entity to help protect myself. Yeah. So I got to get an LLC. And then once I started doing more work after the Break the Chain documentary premiered, and I realized, I'm like going on tour and it's in film festivals, but then also nonprofits are wanting to use it. I was like, this is not working from a business perspective. It'd just be so much easier to work with other nonprofits by also being a nonprofit.
Tell me about Break the Chain documentary.
Yeah, Break the Chain is a documentary that I released in 2017. It's about human trafficking within Michigan and the United States. It features Senator Debbie Stabenow. It features people from the University of Michigan Human Trafficking Clinic, which is one of the most amazing clinics that is in existence, one of the first of its kind. And we followed two individuals, one of labor trafficking, one of sex trafficking, and I call it like a human trafficking 101. It's kind of like, this is what human trafficking actually looks like versus what you think it looks like. This is how complex it is. This is how we need to see it. And these are all the people that we know in Michigan that are working to help combat it.
I love how it takes a specific angle to this issue of human trafficking in Michigan. It's not just looking at this kind of abstract, like, well, human trafficking as a huge thing. Like, no, like in Michigan, likely in your community, like it hits
every community.
In every community, it hits different when you remove this kind of barrier. Like, well, that happens someplace else, not here. You just said something. What human trafficking actually looks like as opposed to what I think it looks like. Can you tell me more about that?
Mm-hmm. So I think there's been a lot more awareness recently, but I still run into the idea of human trafficking is like what you just said. It's over in some other country. It's not in my backyard. It's only in cities. It's only these types of people, and it's only women in chains. And, it's like this whole underground business when in actuality, it's like happening in plain sight around you. It's not just sex trafficking. Labor trafficking is equally, if not more, occurring throughout the world. And we want to talk about what it looks like domestically, because someone from FBI Detroit, I'm not going to say it's Ed Price. I'm not sure. He's said that it was like human trafficking is like domestic violence on steroids. And I felt like simple, but that's a great way to explain it, because the relationships that people get into and how human trafficking occurs and the mental manipulations that occur really are akin to what happens in domestic violence.
Mm-hmm. What can you kind of get, you mentioned having like Debbie Stabenow.
Yeah.
Can you kind of describe the documentary to like, who do you talk to and what's kind of the...
Yeah, who do I talk to? Let me see. Sorry, let me remember this documentary.
Yeah, so through your heart, remember all the way back to the work you did in 2017.
Well, it's funny too because I do not it's one of those things where I do not like to go back and watch my work.
Yes.
Because it's like, again.
But do you talk to survivors?
I do talk to survivors.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's many survivors. Most of the vocal survivors and the ones that are out and do talks and stuff are sex trafficking survivors, because I feel like just generally we have more knowledge and awareness about sex trafficking, and sex trafficking pulls on the heartstrings more, whereas labor trafficking is so woven into our economy that
fair.
It's harder to point the finger at and not have the finger come back and be pointing at you. We don't want to hear about how we
everybody works hard.
So we decided just to make it even. Like, one of the problems that the state human trafficking task force was having is people don't realize that it's sex trafficking and labor trafficking. So instead of having 7 survivors of sex trafficking and 1 of labor trafficking, we just had 1 of sex trafficking, 1 of labor trafficking. And so their stories are just kind of going throughout the whole film. And in between that is we're talking with researchers. We went to DC and we interviewed Colleen Owens from the Urban Institute for Policy and Research. She's one of the experts on labor trafficking. Bridget Carr, who's a lawyer. We just interviewed all these people that are experts in the area about how it occurs.
So Break the Chain was documentary 1.
No.
What was your very first? Do you remember your very first documentary?
Yes, my very first documentary was Every 2 Minutes.
Oh, that came first.
That came first.
Tell me about that.
So Every 2 Minutes is a documentary film about sexual assault on just sexual assault in general and on college campuses throughout the U.S. It was done in 2014, featured what is now Governor Gretchen Whitmer. And it has, I would do this differently, it has 17 survivors.
Wow, that's a crew.
Right. The whole point of doing that was, well, actually, it's probably just because I was a novice filmmaker and I didn't realize 17 stories was going to be how the heck do you put that together? But the way in which we wanted to do it was we wanted to show how all of these stories, though they differ, there's all these similar themes throughout all of them, similar to how I was talking about human trafficking. That's kind of the brand that got off was let's take these topics that are overly sensationalized and have a ton of misconceptions around, and let's try to actually do right by them and show people the complexity of the issue.
Oh, I love that too, because I think while well-intentioned, sometimes the conversation around issues like sexual assault, like self-image, they overly simplify what is such an important topic to understand, because if we understand it in all of its complexity, we're better able to help people. If we pigeonhole, for instance, human trafficking only into what I think it is, and that's what it is, I'm in the process going to miss what it actually is, or a sexual assault on campus. If I have this idea of what that actually is, and I laser guided towards that, I'm going to miss the 16 other survivors who don't necessarily fit that mold. So I love the nuance to the conversation that you're trying to give.
There's so much nuance in everything that we're doing. And I think it's important because that's what survivors encounter through law enforcement or the justice system, is trying to explain that nuance, or feeling like they don't fit the mold of what a certain victim is like to people, and therefore their story matters less or they're believed less.
Yeah, either consciously or unconsciously.
Right.
If I look at somebody and say, well, you don't look like a victim, I'm going to miss the potential that they very likely are a victim, because they don't fit this picture that I've either given myself or that the conversation has taught me that this is what they look like.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm gonna fake confront you because I'm in love with your work. So you have a documentary on sexual assault on campuses. You have Break the Chain, human trafficking. You have body image.
Yes.
Why look at at these issues? Like, you have a body of work so far that people would say, like, what? Like, why? Well, Laura, why are you dwelling on these things, these negative things?
My mental health is asking the same question right now.
I get that. Like, I'm surrounding myself with this work all day, every day, at the same time, internalized. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why go this direction with the work that you're producing?
I think it's important, and I think it's, like you said, it's topics that have been sensationalized, or the complexity is there. And also, I think I can't deny the fact that I'm just drawn to stuff that I also have some sort of tie-in or personal experience in. Having that understanding of being sexually assaulted when I was younger, and the way that society just made me feel like I wasn't at all a victim and I couldn't come forward. And then learning in college through a program like what this actually is, and being like, why was I never taught that sexual assault is like this and is so complex, and coming to the realization 7 years after it occurred that no, that wasn't my fault, just made me feel like I want to give the education to the youth and the public. I want parents to understand how to better prepare their children, how to discuss the complexities of things, how to give out those resources, because I feel like it's so much we just assume that our youth aren't interacting with those things, or it's not going to happen to them. And I feel like so many times the people that I'm around and my friends are mostly survivors too, end up having to tell their parents at some point when they're older what had happened. And I just feel like it would be so much better if people were in a space where they felt like they could do that a lot earlier in life and get help a lot earlier.
Yeah, in having talked to a lot of survivors, they have a very similar story. It's like, I didn't know at the time that was unacceptable, or that was wrong, or that it destroyed me and it felt terrible, but I thought it was my fault. And this idea of saying, I'm going to use the stories that I've experienced to try to help folks who have experienced similar stories so that maybe they can get help earlier than I did, I think is such a beautiful, beautiful thing. Like, imagine if you had a 7-year head start.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Probably a lot different.
Yeah, it'd be a lot different. And I think part of that lag in time is, maybe the generation, and very likely the generation ahead of us, they weren't told the right story. They didn't. That wasn't a conversation that was had, or even an idea or an issue that they were aware of that could be happening. And so then that hurts the next generation, And I think what you're doing is really valuable in saying, not only are we going to have this conversation in an open way, but we're going to present it in all of its nuance and all of its complexity, so that we don't miss people.
Right. Exactly.
Well, you said something earlier about, and I'm going to misquote you, but something like, the only way that you can transform people's hearts is through stories. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me more about that? Like, why do you believe so strongly in the power of that this is more than just like a documentary film? Like, this has the potential to change people and to change people's lives. Why do you believe so strongly in the power of storytelling?
I feel like that's the only way that I've been changed, or that's helped me understand differences in things or somebody else's experience. I feel like we can talk about legislation and stuff all day, and that's very important, and we need that. But I don't think, going toe to toe about this and that and statistics here and there necessarily does it. I feel like when you sit with someone and you have to listen to their full story, and you understand where they got confused, where they shamed themselves, where they ran into things in the system that did not work for them, I feel is the only way that you can truly connect with somebody and connect with an experience that's not your own. And I feel like through that and through those stories is what gives way to that change.
Empathy.
Yeah, empathy for sure.
Can I nerd out on some brain science quick? because I think it applies. Okay. So a lot of my work with community storytelling is trying to prove to people that it's more than just human interest. Like, it's more than just entertainment. It's more than just nice little stories that you have pop up on your Facebook feed. That human storytelling, human to human interaction, is physiologically necessary for survival. That it is something that we need. It is something that we crave at the same level as food and sex. It activates in the brain in the same way. And in the moment of storytelling, and I try to define it as an intentional interaction motivated by the desire to be known or to know someone better.
Okay.
Because like story, like, well, it's like kind of this esoteric, kind of passionate thing. Like, what does it actually mean? But to me, storytelling is two people. It can be two people saying, "Tell me about yourself. What did you do yesterday? You'll never guess what happened to me at work." Well, in those moments, synchronicity happens, and it's called brain-to-brain coupling. So when you're telling me a story about your experience, if we're really paying attention to each other, my brain begins to activate in the same way that your brain is activating, as if I was also experiencing that story myself.
Okay, yeah.
And so when I first started this work, I approached it from a standpoint of, I'm listening to people whose experiences I could never understand in any way. And to a certain degree, that's true. That's absolutely true. I don't know what it's like to be a black man in America, because I am not. But in sitting across from a black man in America, if we approach that space in a way that says, I am listening to you, and I want in a way that the only goal is to understand you better, I can experience on a physiological level just a little bit of it. My brain fires in a way that makes me feel oppressed or guilt or shame, and it only happens if you're paying attention to somebody.
Right.
And you're not coming in with an agenda or anything like that. You're sitting there and listening. And that to me is what makes me believe that story and storytelling is the only thing that can save us.
Agreed.
It's the only thing. I mean, you look at our culture right now, like, why are we so angry? Why does the Surgeon General come out last year and release a report that it is entitled Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation? Social disconnection increases the risk of stroke by 32%, heart disease by 29%. It's like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It has a worse physical outcome than obesity and physical inactivity. Social disconnection. To me, the work that you're doing in saying, look at these people as humans. Look at what they go through. Look at what they think. Look at how beautiful they are. Look at what they struggle. That to me is the Great Reset. It's the community that we all know that we want, but we know that we do not have. Mm-hmm. And what it takes is sitting down, watching a film like yours, having a conversation with somebody, and just saying, like, I want to listen to you. And that, I think, is the foundation of rebuilding these connections and these relationships. I'm just, I used to, sorry, I'm spilling my beans right now, but people used to come and talk to me because I was very stoic. Like I was very unemotional. Like that was the kind of household I grew up in. Like, we really prided ourselves on, like, we're just going to work hard, unemotional. And now, over like the 3,000 interviews that I've done over the last 5 years, you cry at the drop of a hat, or you sit across from a woman who's experienced 7 miscarriages and starting a nonprofit to help families going through similar things. And we're both just like sobbing at this table. Like, why is that? Because you've actually connected with another human being in a way that you can't any other way. And I think what the work that you're doing is such an amazing gift, because it gives people the opportunity. It gives people the gift of being able to feel connected to other people that they don't know.
I could not have said it better. That's exactly what I want.
Yeah. When people show up at the Saginaw Club for this exhibition, what are they going to see when they walk in?
Well, we're doing 2 floors, the second floor and the third floor. The third floor in the ballroom space is you're going to be seeing each individual photo portrait is also going to have a TV next to it. So 22 TVs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Small, but still. 22
this is quite
TVs.
The installation.
It is quite the installation. It's going to be 22 photos, each one, in its own little space. And you can be able to look at the photo, process it there, but then also have a 10 minutes or less documentary style, just seated interview that will be captioned that you can sit and watch or read, so that you can hear and see the person a little bit more, get to know them, hear their full story. And I want it to be more of an experience for people. Because we also have things like if you go downstairs, we're going to have a shame box that you can actively write something that you just want to let go of your shame regarding your body or something about it and put it into the box. We're going to have question prompts on different high top tables that are kind of controversial questions about, body image. Do we think that the health system overlooks larger bodied individuals if they have disordered eating patterns? I want it to be an overall place that's safe for everybody and everybody's coming in with an emotional, experience and to feel like it's a safe environment and that they can just show up however they are, wear whatever they want.
I love this opportunity to, see, so you have these 22 individuals that you see, but now there's an opportunity to also see yourself in a way and participate in this exhibition in a way, more than just look at these 22 people.
Exactly.
Well, if I go in that shame box and I write something down, I am now part of this. Exactly. Exhibit as well.
We want you to be a part of it. We're also going to have just one of those banners up that you can stand in front of, and we have these things that you can write on that say how are you going to see bodies differently? So after you've looked at the installation or whenever you're feeling it, you can write down how you are, and we'll take a professional photo of you. We also are going to have sample workbooks, our Mirrors body image workbook that will have bits and pieces of new research on different topics that touch on our survivors. I call them all survivors. Yeah. I'm so used to it. Our subject stories. Yeah. And then you'll be able to see some additional photos of subjects in there. And you can actually kind of look and work through parts of the workbook of, looking at your family tree and where these body ideals came from and things like that.
This is awesome.
There's also going to be Michigan cream and sugar ice cream.
Oh, yeah. Love cream and sugar.
Yeah. So
they got some killer ice cream.
I know. I just went on Saturday night. We went to Bay City, and I was I need to go over there because I haven't had it yet.
Oh, really? That was your first cream and sugar?
That was my first time. I just heard so much about it, and I was okay, I got to get them. I feel I also want it to be a night of indulgence. Yeah. So I'm I want lots of good treats there. So I was okay, we got to get them, but I need to go test to choose the flavors. So I went and I got 2 flights. One had 4 and one had 3, and I ate they were so good. I ate so much of it that I was kind of puking in my mouth later, but I
coming soon to Old Town.
It's coming. I know, exactly.
They're coming soon to Old Town.
There we go.
What flavors was your favorite?
Oh man, I was really impressed actually with the lemon blueberry.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Because I was assuming in my head when I heard of it that it was going to be some sort of tart, more on the sherbety side, and when I had it and it was savory and had little crumble bits in it, I was okay. And then I love anything lavender. So the honey lavender that they have also right now killer. Is just,
also killer. I love it's always possible to read too much into art and exhibitions and things like that. But I love this idea of here we are at this exhibition that's about body image and self-image. But you know what? We're going to have some, I can't swear on the podcast, but we're going to have some really great food. And
Yes.
we're going to have great ice cream, and we're going to have fun. And this is also like, we can also enjoy it because a lot of the conversation about body image is like attaching shame to food.
Yes.
Like, well, how dare you have ice cream in a...
Exactly.
Did you wrestle with that at all? Or were you just like, no, man, like we're going to have fun. We're going to have some yummy treats.
Yeah, that was the whole point in my head. I've had to wrestle a lot recently with, in
Don't you break my microphone.
sorry.
That's fine.
in the like weight stigma and healthism part of our workbook, talking about like food morality. And it's just been a big one that is so controversial in trying to look through all this research on whether, we shouldn't attach morality to food because it can result in disordered eating. But then also you have to be like mindful of certain things. And sometimes people really can't eat these things. And I was like, you know what? I don't want it to be like, I have like little signs that I'm creating that say like, I just don't like, I don't want to hear you say about how you're going to have to work this off tomorrow morning. Like that's not what we're in here for. So if you're going to eat the ice cream and don't be like shameful about it.
You love every bite of it.
You know you do. Yes, it's celebrate it. Like food is amazing. Like, yes, you might have to control certain things in your life, but tonight is not about that.
It's kind of an interesting angle on the adding complexity and nuance to the conversation, because you can say like, we shouldn't add morality to food. Like pizza is not inherently shameful.
Yes.
And you can say that, but at the same time, if you eat 15 gallons of cream and sugar every single day for the rest of your life, like it's going to hurt you. Like it's just too much sugar. Like there are good, healthy choices, but how do we interact with like guilt and shame, and like when can we be happy, and when can we say like, oh, I am watching my diet because I want to be healthier, and is there guilt involved with that? Like it's complicated.
It is, and I feel like all that guilting and everything that we see in advertisements and stuff is what contributes so much more to this disordered eating culture. But I feel like at the end of the day, like everybody's body is just so different in a lot of ways. And one kind of scale or something, one ring to rule them all is not going to like work for anybody. I mean, my husband, I'll say this. He like sits up at night and he's just like doing his emails and he's eating like the kids' candy. Like the kids are always upset with him.
Yep.
Because
that's me.
Yes, always upset with them because
those
they're like
Welch's gummy snacks. Those are mine.
Oh my gosh.
Reese's Puff cereal. That's mine.
Yes. I just had to take a bunch of the Welch's fruit snack stuff out of my dog's mouth yesterday.
Your dog's got good taste. Those are the best little fruit snacks.
Because he left out the wrappers at night. Like every time I come down, it's like a squirrel went through our house.
Yeah. My kids will get like one bag of those. I will pound that entire box.
Yeah, that's what happens. But yet my husband's just like, then he doesn't put on the weight, and I'm like very confused, whereas me, I like work out 6 times a week. And because I just went to grad school and got stressed out, I gained 40 pounds in the last 3 years. And it's like, I don't understand what's happening.
How is this fair?
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I love it. So you got 22 people in this exhibition. Did you do the interviews yourself? Did you have somebody else doing the interviews? Talk to me about that.
I did. I did all of the interviews except one, because I got sick and couldn't make it. But we traveled, and, independent film, it's like, I'm not going to pay anybody else to bring on. So, I'm going to sit down here and I'm going to do like what you're doing. I'm going to do the audio.
Yeah.
I'm not going to even bring a nice lighting kit because it's too much to travel with, and just 2 cameras and whatever we got, and just do that. And then other times we were able to have a different person come in and man a camera, or they got this nice camera equipment from somewhere else. It's all just like, I don't know, ragtag, just
run and gun.
We're just doing it. Like I'm trying to remember not to focus. And this is something I want to promote through Creative Embers, is like, do the work as best you can. You don't have to have the perfect camera, the perfect lighting, the perfect anything to make it go through.
Yeah.
People's story is what counts.
Yeah, just tell a good story. Mm-hmm. What did you learn? What did you learn from these 22 interviews, or how did it change your mind about the subject? I'm kind of curious to hear about like how you might have changed throughout this process.
I've never thought about that, actually. So I don't know that I have a good answer for it. But I feel like, I don't know, just everybody's resiliency has made me feel so grateful for what I do have and the ability not to be so hard on myself. I feel like I really have gained that. I would have, to be quite honest, I would have never shown up here today, my previous self, because I would have just been all up my butt about like, oh, why are you wearing this? It looks weird. It makes your face look bad, whatever. And it's just like, I care less about that stuff. Like, I am just so done hating my body. I'm like so done hating myself and thinking like I'm not good enough here and there. And just to see how many people have like had to go through all these different things and battles, and they're starting their own nonprofits, or they're, you know, making their way throughout the world with a partner that doesn't treat them like crap. Like this stuff, like it's just making me feel great. Like all this other stuff that we're shown doesn't matter, and I just want to show up. And I just want to show up.
I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful because it sounds like the change was deeper than a conceptual understanding of what body image was. Like
for sure.
It sounds like it became very personal for you, and also a little bit healing for you. And I think that means great things for the folks that will see the exhibition, because you're kind of the proof of the concept. Like you sat down and you heard these 22 stories, and that helped you. And so the potential for it to create real change in people's lives is absolutely possible.
Yeah.
Last question. I just asked you kind of like what you've learned and how you might have changed over the course of this project. What have you learned over the course of your work up until this point? I mean, we got into a little bit of story and I ranted way too long. It's not good podcast etiquette, people. Don't follow that example. But like what have you learned, or how has the storytelling that you've done changed your life up until this point?
I think it's like what you talked about earlier. It's given me the ability to connect with so many more people. I also feel like just on an artistic level, it's very scary to put yourself out there, especially if you don't feel like you're the best at anything.
Yeah.
And for me, I really just hold tight to the idea that art is never done, it's just due. And that's where I feel with it, is there's always so much more that can be done, but you have to at least like show something and give it up, you know?
Oh, I love that. I love that so much because because as a fellow creative, like there are amazing people in the world doing unimaginably high quality work.
Yes.
And you see it on YouTube or whatever. You're like, oh, I'll never take photos like that. I'll never do a documentary like that. And it can be really easy to stuff your idea or stuff the project because, well, in 5 years, then I'll be ready. But your encouragement to just do it is awesome.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Just like I feel like, and that's with people sharing their stories and their vulnerability. It's just, you can tell they're uncomfortable. They went back and forth on whether or not they should do it. And if they're going to show up and take that chance with me, I'm going to show up and I'm going to follow through on showcasing their interview, no matter if the camera literally beside me just broke down or the audio. Like literally the whole project was like that. It's like, this happened. We showed up in this space. Didn't look anything like what it said online. Like, oh, well, we got to work from it. Oh, crap. I'm sitting over here with 2 camera angles and I'm audio and I'm, talking to someone. Didn't realize that camera stopped, or that camera was like, it started like going down. Yeah. And now we're like at someone's hands. I'm just like,
yeah, just do it.
Yeah.
You just tell your story. I love it. So speaking of following through and just doing it, people should come to this exhibit on May 4th. Give me the details. Where is it? When is it? Where can people buy tickets?
You can buy tickets on Eventbrite. You can buy tickets on Creative Embers website, creativeembersnonprofit.org. And then it's Saginaw. The general admission is from 7 to 10 p.m. Yes, you can come in and out if you want to show up later. You don't have to exactly show up at 7, but if you want the donuts and the ice cream, you should probably come soon. And if you are a VIP or a sponsor, or if you want to be a sponsor, you can get VIP tickets. by donating to us. And then you can come from 6 to 7 and you get to see the gallery before anybody else. And you get special cookies from the bread gal.
Ooh,
and you get to meet me.
The highlight of the night. So people go to creativeembersnonprofit.com for those tickets. Well, of course, on Riverfront, blast those links all over. So just scroll down on Facebook for the posts and you'll be able to follow those tickets. This is an absolutely must-see exhibition. I'm not only looking forward to seeing this exhibition, I'm looking forward to seeing the work that you're going to do in the future. So, Laura, I want to thank you so much for spending time with us today, and thanks so much for giving us this gift of this very special project that you're premiering at the Saginaw Club on May 4th. Laura, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You are awesome. You are awesome. You are awesome. Yes.